Good morning, everyone. Welcome to MuniCon 2021. My name is Anya Hart. I'm with the City of Paulsbo, and I'll be moderating for Nuts and Bolts, Practical Advice to Launch a Storm Drain Art Program with Kim Pleger, Education and Outreach Coordinator with Kitsap County. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the Q&A box, and then we will answer them after the presentation is over. So take it away, Kim.
Okay, thank you, Anya. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the final session of MuniCon for day one. I'm Kim Pleger, and I'm an Education Outreach Coordinator with Kitsap County Public Works in the Stormwater Division. I am here today to talk to you about storm drain art, and I am going to share with you the various phases of running this program on an annual basis. And I hope that when you leave today, you'll have a good idea of the next steps that you'll need to take if you want to bring a similar program to your own jurisdiction. So this program and my presentation is broken down into three distinct project phases. There's the strategy and organization, there's choosing your art, marketing the project, and then finally, the most frequently asked question that I receive is, how do you actually paint the murals on the ground? What do you use? So Kitsap County started this project in 2019, and then we were also able to do it in 2020. Because of COVID, we approached the project two different ways in both 2019 and 2020. So I'm going to share a little bit about how we did that in future slides, just to give you an idea of how you might bring this project to your jurisdiction in a post-COVID world. So obviously the first place that you're going to want to start with is getting your appropriate approvals from your agency and maybe even any other partnering agencies. So in Kitsap County, this meant conversations with risk management, contracting, traffic, roads, the people who actually maintain the roadways that you're going to be painting, our maintenance and operations crews in the Stormwater Division, and then lastly, our elected officials, which in Kitsap County is our commissioners. The biggest learning point and takeaway that I want to share with you is to make sure you allow plenty of time for the contracting and legal process. So for the first year of our project in 2019, we knew we wanted to hire local artists, and we wanted to use our county's services contract. That contract's pretty big, so we wanted to strip it down a little bit to make it a little easier to navigate for local artists. We also knew that we wanted to offer a $200 stipend to our artists. So at one point, a question came up about whether our artists were actually laborers as painters, and whether they would need to be paid prevailing wages. So we had to consult with L&I, and they determined that because these are original works of art, and that our artists were not doing any of the prep work, we could pay them a stipend. But just knowing that ahead of time, you're going to want to make sure that you get through that process quickly, so that way when you're actually ready to contract, you don't have any hangups. Some of the other conversations that you'll want to have are with the folks who maintain the roads and traffic controls. Our murals are about 10 feet by 10 feet, so they do butt out into the street. So with each of our projects, we have to run the specific storm drains through our traffic department to make sure there are no safety concerns, particularly because there are staff on the roadway on painting day. We do obviously put up cones and barriers, but some traffic departments may have some issues depending on the roadways that you're on. So far, we've avoided primary arterial routes, so we've not had to hire any flaggers for our project, but that may be something that you could consider in your jurisdictions. And then lastly, it's really important to have your maintenance and operations folks involved from the very start before you even begin the project. Our crews have been instrumental in cleaning our storm drains before we begin painting. They pressure wash. They provide us with cones and equipment. And then something to know is that these murals are not permanent works of art. The very nature of being on the concrete and roadways means that there is a shorter lifespan. So at some point in the future, we may need help from our maintenance and operations folks to remove the artwork. So we want to have them as partners in this project. And then lastly, in Kitsap County, we have 3 elected commissioners in our North, Central, and South District. And we made the decision early on to partner with our elected officials during the process. Okay, so you finally have the buy-in from your manager and your neighboring departments, and now you're ready to choose your site. So as I just mentioned, we have 3 districts. So we knew that we wanted to do 1 neighborhood in each of the districts. Our mission is to create a really visible connection between stormwater runoff and our local waterways. I think many people outside of stormwater don't really give storm drains a second thought. They just walk by them every day. And what we wanted to do was really encourage people to stop and pause and think, what does that mean? What does this art mean? In Kitsap County, we're really lucky to be surrounded by both Puget Sound and the Hood Canal. So we have many smaller waterfront communities that we looked to first. We obviously needed a place that has infrastructure. You want to find storm drains that are right next to your sidewalks and your curbs and that have a well-paved surface. Sometimes in more rural areas, you don't have great concrete surfaces. So that's something to really consider. You also want to consider the impact to your community. So in 2020, 2 of our storm drains also serve as parking slots. It's a waterfront community that's really popular in the summer for boating and beaching, hanging out on the beach. So are you going to create ill will by taking up valuable parking spots for up to potentially 3 weeks in the summer on the waterfront? Fortunately, our community, we have already worked with that community in the past. There's a stormwater park, and so they were really welcoming and loved what we were doing, and the impact on the parking was not a big deal for them. There are some logistical things that you're going to want to pay attention to. So do you have access to running water on your painting day when you need to be able to wash your hands and brushes? Is there access to a sink to dispose of your dirty paint water? Or will your sewer utility, are they willing to pop a sewer lid and let you use that during the day? Do you need to rent a porta potty? Or is there a public restroom for your painters and your staff that day? So we picked out our site, and now we were ready to do our call to artists. So here's where I'll pause just a minute and say that in 2019, we were really lucky to be able to hire 5 artists, but in 2020, we did not. Thank you, COVID. And so I'm going to speak to how we modified our program to meet COVID restrictions in just a few more slides. So for 2019, our call to artists was through an RFP. We did have a picture of each storm drain as well as a design template for artists to use to submit their artwork. Our storm drains were both rectangular and circular, and we required that they were incorporated into the artwork. And in 2019, we even had 2 drains right next to each other. So we had a really cool selection of storm drains to choose from. We also asked our artists to submit 3 themes that you see: stormwater pollution, environmental protection, and local ecosystems. The call to artists was framed as a contest, and it was open for a 4-week submission period. I won't spend too much time on marketing, but to help promote the call to artists, we created a webpage, and you can visit that website today. We used our internal local communications channels. So we have Gov Delivery and have thousands of people subscribed to receive emails on a permission basis. We use social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Nextdoor is really popular and a great tool for us in Kitsap County. And then lastly, we distributed flyers to local galleries and community groups, so both online and in person. For choosing the art, we created a selection committee that was made up of 2 internal stormwater employees, as well as several members of the local community club. In 2019, we were in Keyport, Washington. They have an active Keyport community club, so we asked them to sit on the committee. And then we also asked our commissioner that represents the North Kitsap district. So the committee reviewed and scored the submissions. We removed all identifying information from the entries so that judging was done blind. And we also had our intern, we had a summer intern at the time, compile all of the scores for us. In 2019, we allowed artists to submit up to 3 total designs. In the future, we plan to allow just 1 submission per artist, because we ran into some issues where some of our favorite designs were all from the same artists, and you can really only have 1 artist per site. So moving forward, we will just have 1 submission. And then once we selected our 5 designs, we were cleared to move into finalizing the contract and move on to the fun stuff. So here is where I'll pause a little bit and talk a little bit about 2020. We normally do our call to artists in around April, May. We select our art in June. And obviously, last year around this time was, we just didn't know what we were going to be able to do. So we were thinking we may even have to postpone our murals by a year. But as we started to sort of ease into early summer in Kitsap County, our restrictions were easing. We were able to move from, I don't even remember, phase 1 to phase 2. I don't remember what the phases were anymore. They all blend together. It was way too late to hire artists. So what we decided to do was kind of get a little bit creative and finding a way to still bring something positive through the murals. So we scaled the project back to just 3 storm drains in our South District community of Manchester. We're really lucky that we have a skilled graphic designer on staff who was willing to create some designs. And then one of our chosen artists from 2019 also happens to be a stormwater colleague. So we recruited her as well as our graphic designer to create 5 designs. And you can see on the slide one of the sketches. And then we used our online presence to our advantage. We posted the 5 designs to multiple social media channels with a poll, and we asked people to vote for their favorite design. Everybody was online in 2020, it seemed. So this was really popular. We were able to get hundreds of votes. Then we asked our commissioner of our South District to select her favorite design, and we dubbed it the Commissioner's Choice Award. So the top 3 designs that were chosen by the community and by our commissioner were selected to be the ones to install in 2020. I'm also really fortunate to be part of an amazing team of colleagues who stepped in and helped paint the murals. Our graphic artist and our stormwater colleague were able to assist on painting day. This is where I will tell you, I am not artistic at all. So this part made me really nervous, but it really did work out in the end. Everybody was able to chip in and create beautiful murals that you'll see in a future slide. As we look forward to 2021, we're going to be able to hire artists again, and we're really excited about being able to support and promote our local arts community, which has been hit really hard this last year. We'll still go back to having a committee, but we also really liked having that public engagement with the online vote. So we'll also have some sort of community choice award. So all of this to say is, you can get really creative and find unique ways to involve the community in your own projects. Okay, I'm going to begin our third phase, which is actually site preparation and painting. Before we do that, I thought I'd put a little quote here. Thy fate is the common fate of all. Into each life, some rain must fall. We all know that Pacific Northwest weather is fickle, even in the summer. So in 2019, we had a rain delay. In 2020, I thought I would outsmart Mother Nature, and I chose a day in early August that is historically really dry. I thought I was gold. It rained. So as you move into the phase of preparing and painting, you're going to want to be sure to be flexible and have backup plans. So here's an outline of the steps for painting. It's really important to allow for proper dry times. You're going to want to pay attention to your weather conditions as well as manufacturer's instructions for the products you use. So we started with pressure washing our sites to have them as clean as possible. And after you pressure wash, you need to allow a good 24 hours to allow the concrete to fully dry. The surface may appear dry on the top, but there will be moisture in the crevices that you need to allow them to dry. We then primed our sites. So we covered our storm drains with a thick sheet of Visqueen to make sure nothing went down into the drains. And we taped off our sites with thick painter's tape. And that actually was one of the more time-consuming aspects of the project. We used an oil-based primer that is appropriate to use on concrete. I really like the stain blocking qualities of an oil-based primer, and I like how thick they are, but they do take longer to dry. We used a really thick roller and primered several coats of primer to each site over the course of about 2 days. Once you start priming, it's actually a really quick process. One thing I will recommend is that if you want to have primer on site on painting day, that you bring a water-based primer. We had an experience in 2019 where the primer didn't fully dry before the artist started painting, and there were some moments of panic, and it set the artist back about an hour. So oil-based beforehand, and then maybe have some water-based primer on your day of painting. Painting is one complete day. I'll talk a little bit about that on my next slide. And then the product we used has a 1-week cure time. So we left everything in place, blocked off for a full week. And once that was done, we returned and applied a total of 4 coats of a clear concrete sealer. The sealer required 72 hours of cure time. So again, we left everything blocked off and then tore everything down so that people could resume using the areas. So all said and done in 2020, our artwork was coned off with caution tape for about 3 weeks. So that takes into consideration rain delays and cure times. That's something you're going to want to keep in mind if you're looking for potential sites. Painting day is just one really long day. We had several staff on site around 7 a.m. We set up tents over each site to provide shade. We put out all the painting supplies and we got everything ready. Our artists arrived at around 8 a.m. and each artist was assigned their site. In 2020 with staff, we had about 2 to 3 staff people per site to paint. Then we also suggest having a floating helper with a wagon who can just go to each site to replace your dirty paint, water buckets, rinse brushes, make sure everyone is staying hydrated. It's really hard, back-breaking work to sit on the concrete all day to paint. So make sure people are taking breaks, especially in 2020 when we were wearing masks. It makes you less inclined to want to drink water. Make sure people are drinking and taking breaks. You're going to hurt at the end of the day. Painting takes a full day. Everything wraps up around 4:30, and then you're going to want to have a few people at the end to help you take down your tents and load up your vehicle for the night. So on this product, or on this slide, I've just included a few of the basic supplies that you're going to need. I most often get asked the question about the paint we used. We used something called Chroma Mural Paint. It's an acrylic paint that is designed specifically for outdoor use. Each site had a set of primary colors as well as black and white. So that way people could mix paint to get the custom colors that they wanted for their sites. We absolutely love this product. It's got an amazing texture. It blends really well and the colors are true. So we will continue to use that product in the future. So here are a few of our slides. These are our 2020 slides in Manchester on the day that they were completed. And these are a few of our 2019 slides from Keyport. So thank you for your time today. Here's my contact information. If you ever want to reach out to me, I do have a full report from both 2019 and 2020 that I would be happy to send to you. And now we've got a few minutes for questions.
Yes, thanks, Kim. So we do have a couple of things in the chat box. So this fits in with what you were recently discussing about the paints. So do you have guidelines for the paints used for these, requiring them to be more environmentally friendly?
We did our best to find products that would be as environmentally friendly as possible. These are acrylic paints that we use that are designed for exterior use. So in our research, they ended up being the best possible choice for us.
Have you painted on asphalt as well as concrete?
Yes. Our streets are both asphalt, and we also have some concrete sidewalks.
So there's no difference in the products you use depending on whether they're asphalt or concrete?
Correct.
Okay. So have you done any murals with the paint that only shows up when it rains? Are there different procedures for this?
Oh, so we have looked into that. And when I was doing a little bit of research on those, because I thought they were really cool, I could only find some in like a spray can sort of setting. I really couldn't find products. I think it sounds like a really cool idea. It just didn't seem like an option for us at this point. It might be something we could consider for a specific project down the road.
Okay. So can you talk about what you're going to do as the murals deteriorate, how you want to manage that, what you see happening?
Yeah, so there are really two options. And so one option is that we could go back to the communities that we were in and reprimer and do new artwork. We are leaning more towards just lifting those and removing the artwork altogether. We do have it in our contract with our artists that these works of art are ephemeral and that they may be removed at some point.
So I know we're at the whim of nature, but how long do you typically plan to leave the murals in place, assuming they're intact enough to still be visible? And
Right. So this was a pilot. We weren't really sure how long would the artwork last. I can tell you that the ones in Keyport, which were done in 2019, I'd say we would probably be able to get 1, maybe 2 more years before we need to make a plan for them before they deteriorate to being even recognizable. So I think it's going to depend a little bit on whether you're on asphalt versus concrete, whether your surface, whether there's a lot of car traffic, because we've noticed there's one of our sites in Manchester that gets a lot of traffic and it's deteriorating faster than some of our other ones. And we think it's because the proximity to the sand and there's a lot of boating in that area. So I would say somewhere between 3 to 5 years is a good estimate for these murals.
have you thought about or considered whether it was worth it to go in and reseal them again?
I guess the problem is that they are starting to deteriorate. So you're just gonna, I think that's worth discussing, perhaps having an annual maintenance plan. But again, the surfaces are dirty. So how are you going to properly clean and then apply a sealer? Is it going to make it look worse? I think that's something that we would need to test. My concern would be that if we're applying a concrete sealer over a surface that's already deteriorated, has already seen a lot of dirt on it, it may make it the problem worse. And if we tried to clean it, that could also potentially make the problem worse. So I don't have a solution on that one. I think it's something that's worth maybe testing out.
So you talked a little bit about your having murals in the 3 different commissioner districts, but what are your plans for the future? How do you see this going forward?
So in 2021, we will be, we're partnering with our Parks Department, and we're actually going to do our murals at our fairgrounds. And then I think that we still have a few communities that are really viable options. We're doing some construction in Old Town Silverdale. That would be a really great place for artwork. There are a few other neighborhoods that I think we could bring this. So for now, we're going to continue the community approach and bringing multiple murals to a community each year. I could also see this being a great option where maybe you have a community who wants to take more leadership and buy-in. So for example, I've started conversations with a local college, community college, and they may want to do their own projects involving their students. So this project, I think, has a lot of scalability in terms of maybe it doesn't work to have a set of drains, but maybe we want to just do one drain at a library and one drain at a college, and maybe just more ad hoc. For now, at least for the next couple of years, at least by the end of this year, year 3, we'll do a formal evaluation and decide within our group how we think we want to move this project forward.
Good. So we still have a few minutes left. So if anyone has questions, pop them into the chat box. And in the meantime, Kim, this is an opportunity if there's something else that you would like to add before we leave.
I think I was going to mention a little bit about the budget. So this is not an expensive project. We spent $1,000 on stipends in 2019, and then maybe another $700 on our materials. We bought the paint kits in 2019, and they are still good. We use them again in 2020, and we've got enough paint to get us through 2021. So in terms of budget, this is not a very expensive project at all. If you're looking for something that it's time intensive and staff intensive, but the monetary side is very low.
Well, I'm not seeing any more questions in the chat box, but I'm seeing lots of kudos. So I would like to say thank you very much, Kim. This has been great. And we have lots of attendees who think so too. So if you have any additional questions, you may contact Kim using her information that's in your MuniCon program. So thanks everyone for attending, and have a great day.
Thank you.